Perfect. So yeah, thank you very much for meeting with me. This is just a short interview to capture good practice on integrating community partnerships into academic curriculum and assessment. And today I just want to speak to you a little bit about the Baltic Street project. And even though I've done a little bit of reading, it'd be great if you could introduce yourself and the project a little bit.
So I'm Dr. Helen Trail. I'm based in the political economy cluster at the Adam Smith Business School in the University of Glasgow. And the project we're talking about actually took place back in 2019 when I first joined the business school as a postdoc. So we were working with the Baltic Street Adventure Playground, who are this brilliant community-based adventure playground. It's all very democratically run by the children in the local community. They're based out in the East End of Glasgow, and the project was very much built with them to look at what the kind of ethics of consumption are when you approach sustainability from an area of really high urban deprivation. So it was a collaborative project funded by the Scottish Government and the EU through a fund known as the Social Innovation Fund. So what we were really doing with the project was trying things out. So it was a really interesting project to kind of develop new ideas, particularly around what a community food hub might be able to do in that context. Particularly relevant there is that this is an area of high urban deprivation, which in the UK often usually means food poverty as well. And the neighbourhood is a food desert. So there's this real issue around food access in terms of economic access, but also in terms of literal geographical access. So the project lasted a year, and I was working with Deirdre Shaw, Professor Deirdre Shaw, who is a professor of marketing in the business school, was the PI, the principal investigator. It was her. She was the main name on the grant, but we also had Professor Andy Cumbers and Professor Bob McMaster there, and Dr. Stephanie Anderson. So we were all within the business school, but kind of cross clusters. So we've got a bit of marketing, a bit of political economy, and Bob's an economist as well. So we had a bit of everything in there. So quite an interdisciplinary collaborative project from the kind of the off. And I had the real privilege of spending that year 2019 into 20 or very early 2020 very much embedded in the adventure playground, hanging out there a lot, and growing food with them and talking to them about food consumption and adventure playgrounds, which was a really wonderful way to spend a year actually.
Perfect. That seems like it has a lot of different strings to the project. So just to kind of get an idea on impact. So I know that it's been a while since the project started. Can you think of any specific or long-term sort of impact the project has had on stakeholders involved? So that can be, of course, the community that you're working with, but also as academics for yourselves, or like the field of research in general, or the institution that you were collaborating with.
I think in terms of impact, it's always funny when you talk about academic impact, because particularly on a collaborative project, so much of it is about what's built between the partners, isn't it? I think we have, particularly from a kind of slightly selfish academic perspective, we have this quite long-standing collaboration now. We have a PhD student who's been based there since 2020, 2021, I think she might have started. So we have this ongoing kind of relationship and conversation with them, which has been really helpful for us in terms of developing ideas about what sustainability might mean in these kinds of communities. But I think in terms of a real practical impact, one of the really wonderful things about the project and about Social Innovation Fund as it is that you get quite a lot of money to invest in the community to develop ideas. So we were able to help them develop what we were calling a kind of community food hub, really building on the work that Baltic Street were always doing anyway. So as an adventure playground, they had to introduce food in a way because a lot of the children who were coming in were hungry, right? So even in terms of just providing snacks for the children, and it developed into a kind of a holiday hunger program, although they'd hate the idea of holiday hunger, right? But that's the name of the funding that often comes with it. So they provide meals, they provide fresh fruit during the holiday period. They also now have, and this was something we were able to start kind of test out some ideas for it. They have a kind of community pantry based there as well. So they get food from the Fair Share scheme, which is so Fair Share, an organisation who redistribute food waste from the supermarket supply chain, basically, and redistribute that at low cost to community groups to use to fund community meals or kind of pantries. So they now have a pantry based there as well. We were able to fund a polytunnel so that we could do kind of a bit more growing, particularly in Scotland. If you want to grow interesting things, you often need a polytunnel. If you want to grow, say, tomatoes, it's much easier to do that in a polytunnel. And that gave us this kind of capacity to invest a bit in kind of the garden side of things, and to provide real material resources that then lay the groundwork for what the community food hub is now. So the pandemic hit this particular area of Glasgow really hard. Food poverty has escalated. The number of families now supported by this organisation has, trebled. There are I forget the exact numbers, somewhere around 300 families now supported by